The sun spilled gold across the rolling fields of Eldenwood, illuminating dew-kissed wheat that swayed like a living sea. Villagers bustled along narrow paths, baskets balanced on heads, voices blending into a chorus of mundane life. Among them moved a young woman with auburn hair tied neatly beneath a faded bonnet, her hands dusted with flour and soil. To the world, she was Lyra, a simple farmer's daughter, humble and unassuming. But the truth, buried beneath layers of careful pretense, pulsed like a heartbeat she could not ignore. Lyra's gaze, sharp and calculating, scanned the horizon with quiet vigilance. The village saw only her modesty, the gentle curves of a life bound by hardship. They did not see the fire that lingered behind her eyes, nor the strength in her hands, honed not just by labor, but by secret training long hidden from prying eyes. A sudden gust carried a sound that made her pause, the low, haunting howl of a wolf, distant but unyielding. Her chest tightened and a shiver ran down her spine. The forest beyond the fields stirred, as if the very trees whispered her name. Lyra knew that sound, deep, commanding, primal. It was not a simple animal, but something older, something that could unravel everything she had built. "You're staring again," called her mother from the doorway of the farmhouse, her voice warm yet edged with concern. Lyra forced a smile, just admiring the morning, she said, though her eyes remained fixed on the tree line. No one could suspect that beyond those trees a presence was approaching, a shadow draped in authority, power, and danger, the alpha king of Eldenwood's werewolf pack, ruler of lands beyond imagination, moved with a purpose that unsettled even the bravest hearts. And he was coming for her, though neither of them yet knew why. Her secret lineage, the truth she guarded fiercely, was a fragile thread connecting her to destinies far greater than the village could comprehend. A destiny that could shatter the quiet life she had crafted for herself. Lyra adjusted her apron, heart fluttering in both fear and anticipation. Somewhere in the distance, the howl came again, closer this time, more insistent. The world seemed to hold its breath, and Lyra could not. She was no ordinary girl, and soon the village, and her carefully hidden life, would discover just how extraordinary she truly was. Cliffhanger, the Alpha's presence edges closer, and the first ripple of destiny begins to stir. The distant howl had barely faded when the village gates rattled, announcing a presence that drew every eye. Horses clattered over cobblestones, hooves striking sparks from the stones, and behind them rode a figure that seemed to command the very air. The Alpha King had arrived, tall, broad, shouldered, with hair as dark as midnight and eyes that burned with unspoken authority. He dismounted with a grace that made the villagers step back in awe. Lyra felt it before she fully saw him, a pulse of power that pressed against her chest, a magnetic force both dangerous and irresistible. She ducked behind a crate of apples, forcing her heart to slow, cheeks flaming beneath her bonnet. No one in the village could imagine that the girl they whispered about, the quiet, simple farmer's daughter, was about to draw the gaze of Eldenwood's most powerful alpha. He moved with purpose, scanning the market square. And then, as if drawn by some invisible thread, his eyes found her. For a heartbeat, Lyra thought he must be mistaken. Surely, he was seeing a ghost of someone else. But the intensity in those amber, flecked eyes held a recognition that chilled and thrilled her at once. "You there," his voice rumbled, low and commanding, yet carrying an edge that made her name tremble in her mind before it left his lips. Step forward. Lyra's knees felt weak, but her posture remained defiant. She stepped into the open, forcing a casual smile as she brushed flour from her apron. The villagers whispered and nudged each other, sensing the tension that hummed between the two. He studied her silently, tilting his head slightly. There was something familiar, ancient, almost undeniable, but the Alpha's expression remained unreadable, careful. She felt the pull of his gaze, and the warmth that traveled along her spine made it impossible to ignore the storm brewing inside her chest. I am Lyra," she said softly, though her voice sounded braver than she felt. He nodded once sharply, as if confirming a secret only he could perceive. "Lyra," he repeated, low and measured, "do not think your life here can hide you forever." Her heart skipped and a shiver ran through her. Was it a warning or a promise? The villagers returned to their work, leaving only the two of them in a suspended silence. Around them, the air seemed to thrum with anticipation, as though the forest itself had drawn close to witness the meeting of fate. Lyra's chest tightened with both fear and a stirring desire she did not dare acknowledge. The Alpha King had come for a reason she could not yet understand, but the pull between them was undeniable, and somewhere deep within, she knew life as she had known it was about to change forever. Cliffhanger, the Alpha's recognition hints at secrets Lyra has hidden. Her humble disguise may not survive the day. The morning sun had climbed higher, painting the market square in harsh light. Villagers bustled past baskets brimming with bread, herbs, and fresh vegetables, but Lyra felt eyes lingering on her with a new intensity. The Alpha King's gaze still haunted her mind, and her chest tightened with every whisper. It was then that Lady Selene, a noblewoman visiting from the neighboring province, decided to make her cruelty public. Her skirts swished with exaggerated elegance as she approached Lyra, lips curled into a sneer that could cut glass. "And what have we here?" Selene's voice carried across the square, silencing chatter for a moment. A little farmer girl pretending to be what more than she is. Gasps rippled through the crowd, and a few children giggled nervously. Lyra's hands clenched at her sides, knuckles white. She forced herself to stand tall, but inside, a storm of humiliation and fury raged. The Alpha's presence beside the market's edge made the air heavier. He had been observing quietly, his expression unreadable, but now his eyes narrowed dangerously. "You dare speak to her that way?" His voice rolled like distant thunder, stopping Selene in her tracks. Every villager turned, sensing the power in his tone. Selene's smirk faltered for the briefest second, but pride quickly returned. "And you are," she said, attempting to mask fear with hauteur. "The Alpha of Eldenwood," he replied, stepping closer. The crowd instinctively backed away, leaving a small circle around them. "I will not tolerate such disrespect in my lands." Lyra's heart raced, a mix of relief and embarrassment flooding her. The villagers whispered, the Alpha intervened. But no one understood the deeper tension beneath the surface. The Alpha's gaze lingered on her, protective, possessive, yet unreadable. Selene, unwilling to retreat completely, let her voice drip with sarcasm. "A farmer girl, and still he notices her. What secrets are you hiding, I wonder?" Lyra felt a flash of panic. Her secret lineage, her hidden strength, could not yet be revealed, not in the midst of a public spectacle. But the Alpha stepped even closer, his presence shielding her. "Some secrets," he said quietly, yet every ear could catch the menace in his tone, "are not for fools to speculate upon." The tension snapped like a drawn bow. Selene's lips pressed into a thin line, and she finally turned away, her pride wounded but intact. The villagers murmured among themselves, casting glances at Lyra that were equal parts awe and curiosity. Lyra exhaled shakily, cheeks flaming, as the Alpha finally allowed a hint of warmth in his eyes. She didn't know whether to feel grateful or terrified. His intervention had protected her, yes, but it had also drawn the first line between their worlds, her humble disguise against his commanding presence. A subtle thrill raced through her, a warning and a promise. Her life had already begun to change. Cliffhanger, Lyra senses that the Alpha's interest is more than mere protection, but her secret may soon be impossible to keep. Nightfall fell over Eldenwood like a velvet curtain, and Lyra slipped through the village gates, seeking solace among the familiar shadows of the forest. Her heart still throbbed from the market's humiliation, each whisper of the wind through the trees echoing the Alpha's protective gaze. She needed silence, needed the trees to swallow her shame, if only for a few stolen moments. The forest, ancient and alive, responded. Leaves rustled with secrets of their own, the moonlight casting pale silver paths along the moss-covered ground. Lyra's senses tingled. This was her sanctuary, where no one judged her, where she could be more than the mask of a farmer's daughter. But tonight she was not alone. From the shadows a presence watched, a pulse of strength that made her breath hitch. The Alpha King had followed her, silent as a shadow, yet undeniably there. "You shouldn't wander these woods alone," he said, his voice low, carrying both warning and curiosity. Lyra froze, then forced a casual shrug, hiding the tremor in her hands. "I need air and the trees. They listen better than most people." He stepped closer, and she felt the air thrum between them, thick with tension neither dared acknowledge. "They may listen," he said, "but some secrets are meant to be protected, not just heard." Her pulse quickened at his words, and a sudden whisper of wind carried a sound she hadn't heard in years. A name, spoken as if by the forest itself, her family's ancient power, long concealed. The hair on her arms prickled, and she realized the forest had chosen this moment to remind her of who she truly was, Lyra. His voice softened, but his eyes held the weight of authority and something unspoken. "There is more to you than this village, than the life you pretend to live." Her throat tightened. She wanted to deny it, to retreat into her humble guise, but the truth pulsed beneath her skin like a heartbeat she could no longer ignore. She had trained in secret, studied ancient knowledge, honed skills that even the Alpha could not yet understand, and he, with a single look, seemed to sense it. A flicker of forbidden curiosity danced in his amber eyes, and she felt herself drawn to it despite herself. He was dangerous, powerful, commanding, and relentless. But there was a thread between them now, delicate yet undeniable, linking desire and destiny. The forest seemed to lean in, listening, holding its breath. Lyra's fingers brushed a rough tree trunk, grounding herself, as she realized that this night would change everything. Cliffhanger, the Alpha senses a hidden power within Lyris, something that could bind them both in ways neither is prepared for. The night thickened, wrapping the forest in a cloak of shadow and silver moonlight. Lyra's breath came in shallow bursts, each step careful along the mossy path, yet every nerve in her body hummed with a new awareness. The Alpha was near, closer than she had expected, and somehow she felt him before she heard him. "You shouldn't walk here alone," he murmured from the shadows, his voice a low rumble that stirred something deep in her chest. I need to think," she said, though the words sounded frail even to her ears. "This forest, it's the only place I can." "You think you can hide from destiny," he said, stepping into a beam of moonlight. His amber eyes caught hers, fierce and penetrating, "but it will find you anyway." Lyra felt the words more than heard them. A sudden shiver ran through her, and then a spark, a pulse of energy connecting them, subtle but undeniable. Her heart stuttered. She had never felt anything like it. A thread, almost tangible, stretching between her and the Alpha, invisible yet potent. He studied her silently, a mixture of curiosity, caution, and something far more dangerous, recognition. "Do you feel it?" he asked softly. Her fingers grazed the trunk of a tree for support. "Feel what?" she whispered, though her own voice betrayed her, trembling. "That," he said, gesturing subtly between them. "The bond. It's old, older than either of us. It doesn't care for rules, for disguises, for fear." Lyra's chest tightened as understanding dawned. Her secret lineage, the power she had hidden even from herself, was awakening, and the Alpha's presence was the catalyst. She could feel the pull, a magnetic force threading their fates together, blurring the line between danger and desire. Suddenly, a rustle in the underbrush made them both tense. Instinctively, they moved in tandem, each a shadow of the other. When the danger, a lone wolf from the outskirts of the pack, lunged, their hands brushed, sparking the connection again. It was electric, undeniable, binding. The threat passed as quickly as it came, but the bond lingered. Lyra's breath was ragged, her pulse racing, her senses heightened in ways that were terrifying and intoxicating. She looked at the Alpha, and for the first time, she saw a vulnerability mirrored in his controlled strength, a desire restrained by duty yet impossible to ignore. "You're mine," he said quietly, almost as if testing the truth, "even if neither of us is ready to admit it." Lyra swallowed hard, heart pounding. The forest seemed to lean in, the night holding its breath, and she realized that this bond, magical, psychic, and deeply intimate, would change everything. There would be no return to the life she had known. Cliffhanger, The psychic connection between Lyra and the Alpha has formed, binding their fates in ways neither is ready to face. The village square never felt so suffocating. Lyra had barely returned from the forest when she sensed it, eyes on her, measuring, coveting. Her chest tightened, not from fear alone, but from a gnawing awareness that someone else dared to trespass where only the Alpha's gaze should linger. He appeared suddenly, as if materializing from the shadows. The Alpha's presence carried a weight that pressed against her skin, a gravity that silenced the market around them. His amber eyes were aflame with something she had never seen so raw possession. You. His voice trembled with barely restrained fury, a growl that made the villagers shrink back. Do you think it wise to draw attention to yourself? Lyra's lips parted in confusion and a flicker of fear. I don't understand, she stammered. From the corner of the square, a tall man approached, arrogance in his stride, eyes glued to her. He wore the markings of a rival pack, one whose ambitions were whispered in secret across Eldenwood. The Alpha's jaw tightened, and the air seemed to ripple with tension. I see someone has forgotten their place. The Alpha growled, stepping forward, every motion taut with predatory precision. Lyra felt her heart hammer. This was more than protection. It was dominance, warning, and desire all at once. She wanted to speak, to reassure him, but words failed as she watched his posture shift, the familiar calm replaced by a raw, dangerous energy that made the hairs on her arms rise. The rival took another step, smirking. Perhaps you found your mate, he said, glancing at Lyra with audacious arrogance, but she seems distracted, not quite what I expected. The Alpha's reaction was instantaneous. He moved like a coiled spring, intercepting the rival's advance, his voice low, icy, and lethal. Back! You do not touch her! Lyra's pulse raced as the scene unfolded, and she realized just how fiercely the Alpha's claim ran deeper than mere attraction. It was instinct, magic, possession, a primal warning etched into every fiber of him. Yet beneath the fury, she caught a glimpse of hesitation, of inner conflict. He struggled between his duty as a leader and the undeniable pull of desire. The intensity of it left her both terrified and exhilarated. Finally, the rival retreated, smirking but wary. The villagers whispered behind hands, unaware of the deeper forces at play, while Lyra's gaze met the Alpha's. A tremor of electricity lingered between them, more potent than any words could convey. You belong with me, he murmured, voice rough, low, almost intimate, and I will not allow anyone to take that from you. Her heart shivered at the weight of his words, the possessiveness, the jealousy, the undeniable claim. It was both a promise and a warning, and she realized that her life was now entwined with his in ways she could neither escape nor deny. Cliffhanger, the Alpha's possessive fury hints at danger and the depth of their fated bond, but a new rival is already scheming. The night had barely settled when the tension returned, heavier than ever. Lyra sensed it first, the subtle shift in the air, the brush of eyes she did not recognize, the faint scent of challenge lingering like a warning. Someone was coming for her, for the Alpha's claim, and she could feel the danger in her bones before it even appeared. The rival Alpha revealed himself at the edge of the forest, tall and formidable, his presence commanding the shadows like a predator surveying territory. His gaze locked on Lyra with unashamed intent, a mix of greed and curiosity that made her stomach twist. The Alpha, standing a few paces away, stiffened instantly, every muscle taut, amber eyes narrowing into slits of warning. You've been hiding her well, the rival said, voice smooth, almost mocking, but hiding never lasts. The girl is mine if you can't see it. The Alpha's jaw clenched, a low growl vibrating in his chest. She is not yours. He spat, stepping closer to Lyra, his presence shielding her as if his very shadow were a barrier. You will not touch her, not with your eyes, not with your words, not with your intent. Lyra's pulse pounded as the danger spiraled into something far more than words. The rival's audacity, his sheer disregard for the Alpha's warning, sent a chill down her spine. She realized that this challenge was not just about her. It was a test of the Alpha's dominance, a threat to the delicate balance of power she had only begun to glimpse. I do not fear him, she said softly, trying to assert courage she did not fully feel. And I am not yours to claim. The rival's smirk faltered for a heartbeat, replaced by sharp recognition. So bold. I like that, but boldness will not save you. The alpha's growl deepened, and he moved with predatory grace, placing himself between Lyra and the intruder. Every instinct screamed danger. This rival was not just a threat to her. It was a threat to everything the alpha had built, every bond within his pack. You will leave, the alpha said, voice cold and unyielding, or I will make you leave permanently. The rival's laugh was low, dark, and promising trouble. We shall see, he said, before melting back into the shadows, leaving the echo of his threat lingering like a poisonous perfume. Lyra exhaled shakily, her hands trembling. The alpha's amber eyes held hers, fierce, protective, and almost unbearably intimate. She realized then that danger had a face now, one she could neither ignore nor evade, and the threads of their bond tugged tighter, drawing them closer even as the shadows whispered of trials yet to come. Cliffhanger, a powerful rival, has declared open challenge. The alpha and Lyra's bond will be tested in ways neither is prepared for. The forest was quiet, but the air seemed charged, heavy with memories that had nothing to do with the present. Lyra walked among the towering oaks, moonlight spilling in silver pools across the forest floor, and felt the weight of her own history pressing in. The rival's threat still lingered like smoke that refused to dissipate, but something older called to her now, something she had spent years trying to bury. She paused beside a gnarled tree, fingers brushing the rough bark as images flashed unbidden. Her mother, pale and fearful, whispering secrets of their bloodline, her father, long gone, teaching her to hide power she did not yet understand. The forest itself seemed to whisper reminders of who she truly was, of strength, legacy, and danger intertwined. The alpha was there, silent as ever, stepping from shadow into silver light. Your past, he said quietly, amber eyes fixed on her, is more than memory. It shapes every move, every choice. You cannot run from it. Lyra swallowed hard. I have tried. She admitted, voice trembling. I've worked to keep this life simple, to hide from what I am. You are extraordinary, he said, stepping closer. An extraordinary cannot hide, not from me, not from fate. A gust of wind rustled the leaves, carrying with it a faint, strange energy that made the hair on her arms rise. She realized with sudden clarity that her lineage was not merely secret. It was dangerous. The power she had inherited, latent and untested, connected to forces far beyond the village, tied into ancient magic older than the Alpha's own pack. The Alpha studied her, eyes narrowing. You're not just hiding from the world, he said softly. You're hiding from yourself, and yet. His gaze softened, and a flicker of something intimate passed between them. Even hidden, the bond between us, it finds a way. Lyra's chest tightened as the forest seemed to hold its breath. The revelations of the past, the power within her, and the Alpha's relentless presence combined into a force she could no longer ignore. She was no longer just a village girl pretending to be simple. She was a legacy, a danger, and a mate fated to the most powerful being in Eldenwood. The shadows around them seemed alive, whispering secrets of curses, old rivalries, and betrayals yet to come. Lyra shivered, both afraid and exhilarated. This night was not just about revelation. It was the tipping point, the moment when past and present collided, and the threads of destiny began to weave a tapestry that neither she nor the Alpha could escape. Cliffhanger, Lyra uncovers a family secret tied to her hidden power, one that could change everything and draw dark forces toward them. The wind howled through Eldenwood that night, carrying a chill that sank deep into Lyra's bones. She had returned to the village under the weight of revelations, yet unease clung to her like a second skin. Something dark stirred, not in the forest, not in the rival Alpha's shadow, but in the very blood that ran through her veins. Her hand trembled as she traced the familiar symbols her mother had once whispered about, runes etched into memory, warnings she had ignored in her desire for a simple life. The truth could no longer be denied. A curse, woven long ago into her family's lineage, had awakened, responding to the bond forming between her and the Alpha. "You feel it too, don't you?" The Alpha's voice broke the silence. His presence was closer now, protective yet tense, as if he were straining to contain a storm he could neither control nor escape. The bond, it's activating more than just desire. It's calling them. Lyra's pulse quickened. "Them," she whispered, fear and awe colliding in her chest. "Yes," he said, amber eyes blazing. "Dark forces, those who wish the bloodline undone. They've sensed the power within you, and the moment our bond begins, they will come." A rustling from the tree line made them both tense. The forest itself seemed alive, reacting to the surge of latent magic. Lyra felt her senses heighten. The smell of earth, the snap of a branch, the subtle shift of shadows. Her hidden strength, once dormant, stirred with terrifying intensity. "I've hidden for so long," she murmured, voice trembling. "I never wanted this power, this responsibility." The Alpha took her hand firm and grounding. "It's not just responsibility, it's fate, and you're not alone in this." A sudden howl pierced the night, closer than any before. The hairs on her arms rose. The curse was not just a legacy. It was a threat, tangible and immediate. Lyra realized that her secret could no longer be concealed, that danger was imminent, and that the Alpha would fight to claim and protect her, no matter the cost. He stepped closer, eyes locking on hers with unwavering intensity. "Whatever comes, we face it together," he said, voice low, possessive, and filled with promise. Lyra's chest tightened, a mixture of fear, desire, and adrenaline surging through her. The forest seemed to hold its breath, waiting for the inevitable clash between destiny and the forces that sought to tear them apart. Cliffhanger, the curse awakens fully, signaling dark forces approaching, putting both Lyra and the Alpha in imminent danger. Tension hung heavy in the Alpha's packhouse, thicker than the smoke from the hearth. The curse's awakening had unsettled more than just Lyra and the Alpha. It had stirred old rivalries, jealousy, and fear among the pack. Wolves who had once bowed to the Alpha's command now whispered in shadows, questioning his judgment, questioning the bond forming between him and the girl from the village. Lyra walked quietly through the great hall, her gaze sweeping over familiar faces now laced with suspicion. Her heart ached. She had not sought this life, this attention, yet her very existence now threatened to fracture the unity the Alpha had built over years of careful leadership. The Alpha observed her from across the room, tension coiled in his shoulders, amber eyes flaring. He could feel the pack's unrest pressing against him, challenging him not just as a leader, but as a mate. Every whisper, every sidelong glance reminded him that claiming Lyra publicly would come at a cost he could scarcely calculate. "She has power we do not understand," muttered one of the older wolves, his voice thick with unease. "If we follow the Alpha's decision blindly, we risk everything." The Alpha's gaze cut through the murmurs like fire. "I do not ask your permission. I demand your loyalty. Stand with me, or leave now." The hall went silent, save for the crackle of the hearth. The challenge hung in the air, a line drawn between those willing to defend the bond and those who would let fear dictate their actions. Lyra felt her chest tighten, torn between fear and awe. She had never imagined herself in a place of power or scrutiny, yet the Alpha's presence was a shield, even as the pack's tension made the ground feel unsteady beneath her feet. A murmur came from the corner. An ally loyal to the rival Alpha had switched sides, bowing to the undeniable claim of the Alpha King. Others hesitated, torn between loyalty, fear, and the stirrings of respect for Lyra's latent power. The Alpha approached her, every step radiating dominance, protection, and something intimate, something only she could feel. "This is not your burden alone," he whispered. "We will face the dissenters, the rivals, the curse itself. Together." Lyra's pulse raced. The stakes had never been higher. Loyalty had fractured, trust was tenuous, and danger lurked at every edge of the packhouse. Yet despite the chaos, one truth remained. Her bond with the Alpha was undeniable, and together they were more than any rival, curse, or fearful wolf could overcome. Cliffhanger. The pack is divided, loyalties tested, and danger looming. forcing the Alpha and Lyra to prepare for the battle that will decide their bond. Dawn had barely touched the sky when chaos erupted on the outskirts of Eldenwood. The rival Alpha and his pack had struck, a calculated assault aimed not just at the Alpha, but at Lyra herself. Trees cracked and branches snapped under the weight of snarling, powerful wolves, the forest alive with tension, danger, and the scent of blood. Lyra's heart pounded as she ran beside the Alpha, his presence a steady force amidst the storm. Amber eyes scanned the chaos, muscles coiled like a predator ready to strike. She felt the bond between them pulse violently, the psychic connection they had forged in the forest now thrumming with shared adrenaline and instinct. "Stay close," he growled, and she obeyed without question, instincts tuned to his every movement. The rival lunged first, teeth bared, claws flashing. The Alpha met him head on, a collision of raw power, dominance, and fury. Lyra felt the tremor of the impact through the bond, the strain and risk pulling at her chest. Yet even in the chaos, she sensed his focus never wavered from her safety. She moved with surprising agility, ducking under swinging branches, dodging snapping jaws, her own latent power responding instinctively. Flashes of her family's secret strength surged, enhanced speed, reflexes, and a magnetic energy that repelled those who dared come near. Even the rival Alpha noticed, pausing as recognition flickered in his eyes. "You're stronger than I imagined," he hissed, stepping back, reassessing. The Alpha's growl cut through the tension. "She is mine," he declared, voice raw, powerful, and unyielding, "and you will not take her." In the heart of the battle, Lyra realized the truth. The fight was not only physical but emotional, a test of trust, connection, and fate. Her pulse synchronized with the Alpha's, every strike and parry mirrored in their psychic bond. Danger and desire collided, making every moment electric. Finally, with a surge of coordinated force, the rival's pack faltered. The Alpha pinned him, dominance undeniable, while Lyra's energy reinforced their claim, the bond between them blazing in unison. The rival retreated, leaving the forest echoing with the Alpha's triumphant growl and the whisper of leaves carrying relief. Breathless and trembling, Lyra looked at him, seeing not just a protector, but a mate, a force intertwined with her very soul. We survived," she murmured. "Yes," he said, amber eyes softened, yet still glowing with power, together, and nothing will threaten what is ours. Cliffhanger, the rival has been driven off, but their bond is now undeniable and public, setting the stage for the Alpha's claim and resolution of the curse. The first light of dawn bathed Eldenwood in gold and silver, painting the village and forest in a tranquil glow that belied the chaos of the night before. Lyra stood at the edge of the clearing, heart pounding, nerves fraying, yet a sense of anticipation stirred deep within her. She knew this moment had been coming. Fate, the curse, the rival Alpha, all of it leading here. The Alpha approached, silent but commanding. His amber eyes locked onto hers, a mixture of intensity, possessiveness, and tenderness that left her breathless. He stopped just a few paces away, the forest and villagers alike holding their collective breath. "You fought, hidden, and survived," he said, voice low and resonant, "but no longer will you hide. No longer will anyone dare challenge what is mine." Lyra's pulse quickened. She had never heard such a declaration, so full of certainty, protection, and desire. The villagers watched in awe, sensing that this was no ordinary union, no casual proclamation. It was a claim, a destiny, a recognition of power, courage, and love. The Alpha reached for her hand, taking it gently yet firmly. "Lyra," he said, "you are mine, by bond, by fate, by the power you carry, and by every choice you make. I claim you before all and nothing. No curse, no rival, no fear will take you from me." Her chest tightened as emotions surged, fear, relief, love, desire, and trust mingling into a single overwhelming force. She squeezed his hand in return, realizing that she had never truly belonged anywhere until this moment. The forest seemed to sigh, the wind carrying whispers of acceptance, of destiny fulfilled. Around them, the pack shifted, once tense and fractured, now aligned in recognition. Murmurs of awe and approval spread through the gathered wolves. Allies returned, rivals bowed or retreated, and the curse that had threatened to undo her was now neutralized by the strength of their combined bond. The Alpha drew her close, amber eyes softening, voice dropping to a whisper only for her. Together, he murmured always. Lyra rested her head against his chest, feeling the rhythm of his heartbeat, the warmth of his presence, and the unbreakable connection that had carried them through danger, secrets, and desire. For the first time, she allowed herself to exhale completely, knowing that the storm had passed and love had prevailed. The forest glimmered with the first rays of the sun, and the world seemed to hold its breath in awe of the bond they had forged. Lyra smiled, a mixture of joy and surrender, and knew that this was the beginning of everything, together, unstoppable, and claimed by love that could not be broken. Resolution. The Alpha publicly claims Lyra, the curse is broken, and their fated bond is fully realized. Achieved.